Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to episode 10. 10. We've been going for 10 weeks already. And this time I get to have the pleasure of talking to one Mr. AKA Notovin, real name Mr. Hayden Fowler, races J2ICS, I should say, in English. And I'm looking forward to having a nice chat with this young man. Good afternoon for you. Good evening for me, Hayden. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It's always a nice, pleasant Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, it definitely is, mate. It definitely is, and that's the thing, nice and chilled out. You been up to much today?
Uh, yeah, I just got back from a couple of classes I had, and then yeah, I get to do this now.
Awesome job. Awesome job. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But first, let's have a chat about the whole career of sim racing. Where did it all kick off for you? You're a young lad, so it can't have been very long ago.
Yeah, so I started sim racing 2019 when I was 15 or whenever that was. Started on Xbox on Project Cars 2. Joined a guy whose name is Paul Seeley. Other people may know him as Night Racing,
Yep.
and you also probably recognize that as the team name. We are called Night Racing Esports.
Yep.
So it started on Project Cars 2, joined a little league, which thank God, because that kind of got me into this amazing hobby. Ran that league for about 4 months, and then Paul, he moved over to iRacing, and then I was like, hey, that sounds like a good excuse to drop some money on a computer, so dropped some money on that, and then joined iRacing, and then I've been doing endurance racing ever since, and then kind of been dabbling into some league racing here and there, and that's basically it.
Well, there you go. That's not a bad way to get going. You know what I mean? And I think for me, it's quite interesting when you speak to people how they started. You know what I mean? Because you're in that lockdown period.
I would have started just before was when I joined iRacing. I joined iRacing January 2020. So I would have gotten just before COVID kind of became a good thing. I remember reading articles about it before it kind of blew
Yeah,
up. And then, so kind of got into it when before all the prices went up for computers, which thank God because they're so expensive now.
yeah.
But yeah, it was able to get in before that big COVID craze, kind of get my feet settled before all the people staying home from work got in.
Come from Project Cars, and then you go to iRacing. You've got completely different simulators. You've got one that feels realistically real life. You got Project Cars at the same time. How's the transition over? Because obviously they are completely different.
I must say I don't quite remember that far back. I want to
Dude, it was like
say
4 years ago. I'm old. I'm the one who's supposed to say I'm not going to remember. Not you. You're like a spring chicken. You're supposed to remember what you did yesterday. I forget what I did about an hour ago.
I'm pretty forgetful, but from what I could remember, I think the bigger part was because in Project Cars 2, I ran GTE predominantly.
Yeah.
So the probably the hardest part was going from that level of speed to like the Mazdas, like the Mazda Miatas, like the MX-5s. It didn't affect me too much because I only did like 3 races in those cars, and then you bump up to the next license level. But I did get my first win in my second race in those cars, but that was purely because I just didn't crash. Everyone else ahead of me crashed and just kind of swung by, got my first win 2 races in. I
Yeah.
think my next race win didn't come for 100 races later, but I don't speak about that. And then eventually, and then so started with the MX-5s, did 3 races, got the what do you call that? The fast rate up, like where you do 3 races, your safety rating's above 4, and then you get
Yeah.
promoted. I did that. I think I was up to B class by my 8th day. Because back then the main goal was getting into endurance racing. So it
Mm-hmm.
was like try to get to your B class as fast as you can so that you can do the 6 hour races.
Yeah.
And
And
then
go on. Sorry. Carry on.
And then yeah, so it was MX-5s, and then I jumped into the Cadillac CTS V, I think it was.
Yeah,
Got my MPR at Bathurst. So
nice.
that was an interesting one. And then I want to say I think GTE was a C class event back then. And then got into the GTE class. I think they were running at Le Mans, so that's like an easy track to get safety rating. And
Yeah.
then got my B class, and then that weekend I think I did an endurance race. So that's basically my step up through the ladder in iRacing.
How did it come about with J2ICS then? Because obviously you've got, well, this season it's GTP as well as open wheelers. How do you cross over? Do you cover both the endurance and the sprint?
I do them both. I find swapping cars doesn't really affect me too much because I find for most cars the breakpoints are about the same. The like if the car is going sideways, it's going sideways. Like it's
Yeah.
all pretty simple. Probably the biggest adjustment I've had to make has been just higher downforce cars. Because like I probably spent like a solid 3 years running only GTE, and going from those cars, like they have more downforce than GT3, like just a
Mm,
little bit. But the thing with us is night racing, we kind of run low downforce settings. That's just how our racing typically goes for it. Helps you save fuel. It makes you damn near impossible to pass for some tracks.
yeah.
So going from a low downforce GTE to GTP open wheelers has been kind of a learning curve, like just kind of learning to take more speed into the corners, kind of using the downforce per se. It kind of all kind of started in the LMP2. That's probably my most competent higher downforce car, if I had to say. But that's not to say that it's slow, right? Like it's still pretty fast car. With the update, it's a little bit slower now. The engine revs, I don't like that at all,
Mm.
but it is what it is, right?
Well, you're sitting. I think if these scores are up to date at the moment, you're sitting in second in the endurance and first in the sprint series. You know, you got Squilliam giving you a good old chase, and then Beaver taking the lead in the endurance series. You know, what is the? Are you going for both championships? Do you think you can get both championships here this season?
I think I have a decent shot at it if I keep doing what I've been doing. The last endurance race was kind of a hard one because I had some hardware failure. I feel like without that, I probably could have won that race and extended the lead that I had. But now both Beaver and I are tied going
Mm,
two races into the season, which I've done it before. I mean, if you look at last season J2I with GTE, Sean and I were tied going into the last race. I think, like if not the last race, maybe the second last race, the same situation as we're in right now, and just kind of got to keep it consistent. Got to kind of not make those mistakes. Make sure all your hardware is up to snuff so that you don't have another drop week because of that. But it's just kind of staying consistent and whatnot.
mm.
I think in the endurance at least, last race was the only race I finished outside the top three. So it's just kind of being there, make sure that when you do drop your races, they're either a drop week or you're dropping a third place, which is a good place to be in.
What advice would you give to somebody, because you're going into Hockenheim next week and this, or this coming week, I should say, in the sprint? Um, Not the most easiest circuit at all to get to grips with.
Yeah, I've kind of struggling a little bit, if I do say so myself. I think I jumped in a practice session, yeah, a couple days ago with Squilliam, and he was running like a second faster than I was, and I was like, oh, that's wonderful. Gotta find a second somewhere, and then you just kind of start taking the corners a little bit faster, using a little bit more curbs, kind of seeing where you're kind of trying to make up a little bit of time. I think by the end of the session, I was only 4 tenths away from
Yeah.
him. That's still a big gap to make up, but I feel like with the toe, with some clever race tricks, you could probably stay close to him. If you get ahead of him, just make sure he doesn't pass you. it's just it's hard to say until race day comes, right?
Hit the brakes and I hope he stops behind you. That's what I generally say. I know, you are going to be in trouble, if all of a sudden he just go bang straight out the back end of you and you're both done there as well. But how did you end up in J2ICS? How did that all come about?
So that's really interesting because J2 or J2I used to have an oval section, and I believe I joined because I wanted to get into oval racing.
Mm,
And then when I joined, I saw they were racing GTEs, and like at this point, like I think we were like 2 years in running endurance races with those cars. So I'm like, oh, I'll jump in those for some fun. And then ended up mainly racing the road, and then the oval section just kind of disappeared. So it didn't really run any oval races anyways because I like that stuff's fun, but it's not really my forte, I guess you could say.
yeah.
And I have yeah, and then just kind of kept doing that. I was kind of a inconsistent attendance when I first joined up, and then eventually I kind of started having all the tracks I needed to run because they run some vastly unpopular tracks, to
Mm-hmm.
say the least. So it's kind of hard to own them all and be like, yeah, only going to use this track once. But eventually, once you get the tracks, the participation kind of becomes a non-issue, and then you just have to show up, basically.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Every you get to a point where you look at it and you just go, okay, I've got the track, that's fine. Eventually, you end up to the point of where you've got every track, you know what I mean, or
Yeah,
every track that you need, I think, as well. But obviously, in my state, is a little bit different. I've pretty got trucks and cars coming out my bum that I'm probably never ever going to use again. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
buy them as a one-off and go, yeah, that'll do. And then before you know it, you've got tracks that you're not even sure that you're ever going to need. But I think that's what makes it very interesting. It's interesting that you say they had an oval session. I'll have to talk to Nick and see if we can get that oval league back up and going again, because that would be quite cool. Even I would drive in that. You'd have to make it a little bit earlier for me though, because 20 past 2 in the morning would be an absolute killer trying to get my
yeah,
butt on track at that time in the morning. But I think ovals is an interesting um, it's a different kettle of fish compared to every other form of racing. You people look at it and you think, oh, it's nice and straightforward, it's nice and easy. You just put the accelerator down and away you go. But it's kind of not quite like that. That's the thing, is it? Really, there's a lot more involved in it. But yeah, I'll have to try and get hold of Nick. Oh, Nick, if you're watching this back, son, give us back the oval one. That was cool. I'll enjoy that one there as well. What gets away from this whole sim racing community dilemma, drama, dramatics that we're in at the moment? What do you do outside of this?
yeah. So I'm actually a university student. So during the fall and the winter, I go to classes, 6 classes. I'm in engineering, so that's always fun. And then it's always kind of hard to balance trying to get enough practice to win races with also studying for your courses. Sometimes things take a back burner. Either
Mm.
it's studying or it's practicing. I'd like to say all the races I've done really poorly in has been because I had a test the next day. That is not true.
I was going to
um,
say, don't tell fibs there, dear sir. You know what I mean? I've been around the block a few times, and I'm not open to somebody dishing a little bit of rubbish out every now and then as well. So come on, spit it out. What do you study?
I study engineering,
Okay, that's not
and
too
then
bad,
if you want to be a little bit more precise, I study mechanical engineering. So
right?
lots of fluid dynamics, solid mechanics, design work. I could go on for ages, but I don't want to bore you. But it's definitely a lot of work, and then pair that with trying to be competitive in J2I. It's kind of it definitely takes a little bit of balancing.
Yeah, I'm probably guessing it does. I think the thing with J2I is quite late, isn't it, for you in conjunction? Is it about 20 past 9 or something?
For me, it's not terrible because I live on well, I live a time zone ahead of the West Coast, so like for me, the races only start at like 8:30, and then they're done by, or not 8:30, they start at 8, and then
Yeah.
they're done by 9:30. So that's perfect time, and then you have a little bit of time before you head off to bed, and then you wake up at 8, right?
No, but that's fair enough then, isn't it? You know what I mean? Do you have to travel far for university or not really?
Uh, Not so much for me. It's just like a 15-minute bus ride, so it's like I could walk there in 30 minutes if I wanted to, but it is only a 15-minute bus ride, so it's basically right there.
Do you not drive?
I do, but parking is very expensive.
Oh, okay. So bus is
Like,
easier or
well,
cheaper.
it's easier and it's cheaper. Because that way, because I live in Canada, so 6 months of your 8-month school year are snow, so you have to let your vehicle warm up, you have to defrost everything, then you have to drive around all the idiots and then find parking spots. It's like realistically, it's probably just faster to take the bus in the wintertime, right?
It literally sounds like grief already, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
To be blatantly honest with you, because I think I wouldn't want to be. I don't know. I've driven for years, so getting on a bus all of a sudden, I probably wouldn't even know where to start. To be blatantly honest with you, and I'd probably sit there and be like, "Oh my god, I'm so bored. I could have been there by now." Especially where I live. I live out in the middle of nowhere, so
Oh,
the
yeah.
bus for me to get anywhere takes an hour, and it only takes me 20 minutes in a car. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
stick to that one.
if I don't need to pay for parking, I'll drive because it is generally a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But like in the winter time where it gets like to negative 40 degrees Celsius here. So it's like your
Cold.
vehicle needs time. Yeah, yeah, your vehicle needs time to warm up or else you're not gonna have a vehicle for much longer.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
a little
occur
bit chilly, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is a little chilly, and then like the only disadvantage with taking the bus in the wintertime is you have to wait outside. But if you're well dressed, it's not an issue.
I suppose on that side of things, though, you would just put a coat on, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Coat,
yeah, exactly.
coat and a hat, and have done with it. Because otherwise, you'd be very, very cold indeed, and it'd be very, very interesting. I'd be looking, I'd be like, ooh, forget this one. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
just not for me on that one. What else keeps you going outside then? Because surely it's not just sim racing, is it?
Uh, it basically is actually it's sim racing and studying at the moment. I really don't have much time for anything else. I do play a couple of other games, but that's like very few and in between. I try to watch movies every now and then. Doesn't happen very often, but like when a good movie comes out, I'll go watch it, I guess. But it's not anything that has caught my interest lately.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything good. I did watch one the other day on Amazon Prime, actually, called The Dark Tower, I think it was. Quite an old film with Matthew McConaughey. It was actually quite good, to be honest with you. I did watch one last night, but for the life of me, Hayden, I have no idea, and I cannot physically remember what it is, to be blatantly honest with you, what I actually watched. So it can't have been that good. You know what I mean? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, otherwise I would have remembered what it is. But do you get to go out to like many racetracks in the real world? Is it something that you get to do very often?
Um, Unfortunately, that type of stuff is not in my part of Canada. There is a couple of tracks in my location. I couldn't tell you the name of them, but I do know there's a couple of them. I've never thought to kind of go out and find them, and I've never seen any advertising for them around the city at all. But yeah, no, like Alberta is very like it's not like we don't have a big culture of racing, I don't think. No.
So you haven't got to go to, Mossport yet?
No, that's on the other side of the country.
Oh, okay. Montreal?
The same other side of the country. All the racing basically happens on the east side of Canada,
Right.
and like I'm on the west part. So if I want to see any of that, it's either take a flight down there, or it's a 20 to 40 hour drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very far. Like it's basically all the way across Canada.
So you've never watched a physical live race then?
Um, not not like not like not like the racing that we do in the sim per se.
Yeah.
There is like my uncle owns a track for like off-roaders. So like you have like climbing up hills, going through mud pits and whatnot. So that's probably the closest thing I've seen. And then you have these vehicles that are like 15 feet high, like big tires as I am tall. It's a different type of racing, and that's not generally the type of stuff I'd want to watch. But I have been to a couple of those, yeah.
Nice, nice. So where do you see yourself going further on from that? Because how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm only 20.
You've got a long way to go, mate. Long way to go. Do you know what I mean? And I presume at the moment living at home?
No. So I live in Edmonton, so I'm living with a roommate, and then my parents live like 2 hours away. So it was like I'd love to live at home and my not have to pay my rent, but unfortunately, just the location doesn't agree.
Yeah, I think that's always a difficult one when you're so far away, especially, if it's for university point of view,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? I think if it's uni and you're living near it, unfortunately, you've got to suck it up and pay. So do you do a job at the same time, or is that not all, you don't, that's not your rent covered by that?
So how I do it is I work in the summer, and then I just do school during the fall and winter term, so that's 8 months. So I'm only working 4 months of the year, and I find generally that's enough to cover basically everything that I need. Yeah.
So you just chill out for the winter.
Yeah, in school, yeah.
Fair play. You know what I mean? If you haven't got to worry about anything else. So what other things do you play outside of the whole sim racing related environment?
Ugh, man, I don't really have any specific games that I play. I just kind of play them all. I'm pretty big into kind of like colony management type games. So that's like top-down builder games. You place a block, it makes food, and then you're happy, right? That's
Right,
generally
okay.
the only types of games that I play that are notable. Like every now and then a game will come out and I'll be like, oh yeah, that looks interesting. I'll play it for 2 hours and then be like, it's not as good as it looked.
I think that's the thing. There's a lot of things out there that do come out, and before you know it, you get bored of them, and then you're sort of sat back going, "What am I going to do now?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What next? It's like me with iRacing, and I think it's just one of the things that people don't get when they turn around and go, like, do you drive? No, I do this all day. I spend all day on iRacing doing, commentating or designing overlays or something, and I'm constantly watching cars go around. The last thing I really want to do is sit there and be like, on the track. That I don't know. It's like a builder don't build in his own house. You know what I mean? And a chef don't cook. It's like a commentator don't drive because it gets to a point where you're just like, no, I don't want to touch it. So I'm more of a sort of, I don't know. I play the odd game of Fortnite over a friend of mine. Don't get me wrong, we're terrible at that. You know what I mean? That's about it. And then I played Path of Exile 2, which is quite cool. I played Path of Exile 1 for hours. And I play Path of Exile 2 because it just gives me something to relax away from this environment. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing in conjunction with stuff. It just sort of brings you out of that bubble. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it just
Yeah.
unwinds you, and I think that's the thing when you talk to people outside. When we have these chats, and you say to them, "What do?" You hear so many different variances of stories. It's so vast. You've got the likes of Al Corey, who's old and he's playing ice hockey, and people tinkering on the cars, and Dave Mole hurtling around the car track and everything else. And it's just like absolutely bonkers some of the stuff that you see and hear that people get themselves into. I think that's what kind of makes this world interesting, because we've got sim racers, but they're also, like yourself, studying engineering, and you wouldn't put two and two together sometimes with that category of sim racing or an engineer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just absolutely nuts. What do you? So how long? First of all, how long you got left at university?
I only have like another year, so I'm basically done.
So what's the plan after that?
The plan after that will be just finding a job, I guess. It's kind of hard to say what the economic landscape will be in a year from now, so definitely have to kind of start looking and hoping a job opens up that'll be a decent place to start. And just kind of go from there, really.
Oh, mate, I don't even know where the economic landscape will go. Everywhere's chuffed, pretty much.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
We're all fucked on a roundabout level, one way or another. And you know, I know Canada's just got a brand new prime minister or something, haven't they? At the same time,
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's any better than what you had last time. To be blatantly honest, only cover sort of follow the UK's politics. It just
I won't comment.
mate, I don't. You can say whatever you like. Honestly, Hayden, to be fair, I don't really give a shit. You know, I don't think the Prime Minister of Canada is going to really sit down and watch what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
no.
it is to be honest, there's so many people I think that come out of college, especially over here. They come out of college, they come out of university with degrees, and then they end up working at McDonald's
Yeah.
because you just can't get a job, and then it becomes, it's really quite interesting actually, because then it becomes a roundabout, because you come out of college and then you think, oh, I've got an interview, and you go for the interview and they go, what experience you got? And you're like, well, I
Yeah.
haven't, I'm just
Mhm.
fresh out of college. Well, you need experience. But how the come am I going to get experience if you don't give me the job to get experience? Well, you should do some volunteer work and work for free. All right. Well, now I'll go and shit the £50 notes out of my bum at the same time to pay for stuff, because that's how it is. That's the problem, isn't it? And it's very hard to get into anything that you generally necessarily study. And I would, as I said, probably suggest it, so that you do start looking and getting things out there, because you just never kind of know what you're going to end up doing in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's quite difficult too, because like I did look for jobs over the summer to kind of hopefully get some experience, but there's always like a plethora of like requirements. Like preferably for me, I was only looking for something that's 4 months long, and lots of companies are looking for 8 months. And I'm like, well, like at that point, if I just didn't do it like 4 months later after the job ends, I could be graduated by then, right? So it's always kind of like you go through the checklist that they give you, and then it's like check, check, check. Oh, don't meet that requirement. Okay, send that out the window. And then you go to the next one. Check, check, check. Oh, that's another requirement I don't quite meet. Throw that out the window. Then you
Mm-hmm.
go through all the things, then all of a sudden you're looking at nothing. And it's like, oh, that's wonderful.
And now you can see why people end up working at McDonald's. And
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and that's, I think that's the landscape. There's, although I don't, you know, I don't bash on people who go to college and university. I think it's your choice. I did college for about a year 30 years ago. You know, I'm old. Everything's changed since then. Fair play, whatever. You do whatever you want. But there's no support network for when you finish. There's nobody
Mhm.
picking
Yeah,
you. There's nobody picking you up and going, right, Hayden, you've just graduated with honours on a 3.0 GPA, whatever it is. I don't know what you get over there. I'm just making shit up as I go along, to be blatantly honest. Right, we're going to put you into this pool of people. We're going to give you this experience. We're going to get you out there for jobs. And there's nobody does that. They kind of, thanks very much. We've got your money. Piss off.
hmm yeah,
And then you're stuck, aren't you? You're fighting yourself in the real world and not really knowing where to go. You know,
yeah, yeah. That's something that definitely happens to a lot of people.
mate, it happens
Luckily
to
I live.
about 99% of people I've spoken to. Like
Yeah,
there is so many people that have got degrees coming out of their bum who are more qualified to do anything, and they end up flipping burgers at McDonald's or any fast food joint.
yeah,
It's hard for young people nowadays. It really is a lot tougher than when I was, you know, looking and working and coming out. Because, you know, when I was a kid, I say kid, 16, 17, looking for work, and you go for a job, you get hired that day, You start the following day. If you didn't like it 2 weeks later, you could walk out of it, go down to the road, call a job centre where they advertise jobs, pick up a card, take it to the counter. She'll ring them up. Can you? Yep, bring him up. Go up for a chat. Next, you know, you're in another job, and that's all within 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And that's how it
Yeah.
was back then. It was just so more easier for us to get jobs than it is now. And if I weren't doing what I was doing, God knows what I'd be doing, because it's just like, you know, I went for one job before I started doing this and before I was working at a school previously, and they were like, "You're overqualified." I'm like, "What does that even mean? I just want a job. I don't really care what it is."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you guys have got it tough. I don't think it, to be honest, I don't even think it matters what country you're in, Hayden. I think everywhere is in the same boat, you know, and good luck to you. So if you can find, you know, a job that you're able to go into, without having to do 50 hours a week voluntary because some geezer wants to use you as a slave and not pay you anything, you know what I mean, just for you to get experience. And that's a lot of the problem, isn't it, nowadays as well? Where do you see this, though, coming away from the real world? Because obviously we've been in there and we've bashed on it enough in conjunction with that. Where do you see the whole sim racing thing fitting in? Because it's interesting when you talk to everybody, because you generally go into something and your goal is to do this, you know, and everybody I've talked to over the last 10 weeks, nobody really sees an end to their iRacing career, their iRacing fun.
It really just depends on why you're in racing, like in iRacing. Like if you're in there to like win a championship, maybe once you win that championship, you're gonna be like, okay, this is enough for me. But it's one of those things where once you're in iRacing, chances are you have a wheel, you have pedals, you have a rig, you have a headset you can put on, yada yada yada, and then all that is money, like XXX, like decreasing your bank account. And then once you finally get to that goal, it's just like, okay, I feel like I could stop now. And then you look down, then you have all this expensive gear around you. Then it's like, okay, maybe let's continue this just to kind of get my money's worth, you know?
Mm,
But for me, I think it's just mainly about having fun. Like it's not so much about the result that matters. It's about like the journey there, I guess you could say. It's
yeah.
how much fun you have on the way. Like I've had so many endurance races, like 24-hour races that we've crashed in the first 2 hours, and then we spend the other 22 hours making jokes about other cars on track. You know, it's just like you see a name, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's an awesome last name, man. Like, man, I wish I could have that last name. And then you have like you make jokes with your teammates, and it's just a laugh the whole time. Like of course it's like it'd be nice to be winning those races, but like at the same time I do feel like I value the time you spend with your teammates
Mm.
a little bit more than the end result.
Yeah, because you're tied up with Bozak, aren't you, at the moment, Jaden? How did all sort of night racing come around then? How did that all kick off?
Yeah, so well, we really have to go back to Project Cars 2, because like I think it was like September 2019. I joined a league called the Night Racing League. And then we had a bunch of guys, and I started racing. I was terrible, man. Like I was like the slowest car on track. Like I remember my first race vividly because I qualified 22 seconds off pole. And that's just simply because like I got in the car during qualifying for the first time ever. So did that, had the humiliation, jumped in a car that I was more familiar with, still didn't do all that good, and then I'm finally like, okay, let's change this, and then I kind of just started practicing. Um, I think for my third race, I practiced probably 2 hours a day going up to that race, so probably 5 hours of practice easily. The race goes in and I win it. Like, and then it's like, okay, practice correlates to success. Let's do that, and then just start practicing every single day. Like, like you see the results coming in, you're
Hmm.
happy because you're winning, And then eventually the season ends, and then the league owner, he's like, we're going to iRacing. Like, we want to start an endurance team. And I'm like, sign me up. Like, this has been an awesome experience so far. And then we join iRacing, and then we do endurance racing. And then eventually, like me as a solo driver, I find J2I. I join, and then I do a couple of races like here and there. It's like I wasn't a frequent racer.
Mm.
When I first started, it was like once every 3 races, I'd jump in, I'd drive the car, and then I'd finish second or something. And then eventually I started actually like spending a little bit more time in it. And then I finally forced Bozak or Jaden to join me. I'm like, hey, join me and make my setups for me, please. And then he joins, and then I start winning a lot more races because I have setups, and I'm like, hey man, keep doing this. We're doing awesome. And then yeah, and then we kind of did that, and then we won our first team's championship last season in GTE, and I think we're looking pretty good to win both of the championships, like
Mm.
both team championships for the sprint and the endurance this season. So looking forward to that, hoping we can have a good rest of the season and kind of tie that up, present it to the rest of our team saying, hey, we did this, we're putting our name on the map. And then yeah, kind of go from there. But yeah, it's definitely like night racing started as a racing league. We kind of transformed into a racing team for endurance races,
Yeah,
and we've done we have a lot of experience going, like attending races longer than 6 hours, and we have a lot of success as well.
that's fair enough, dude. And I think if you're happy and you find people in and around you that are fun to be around, I'm sure there's always these dramatics at some point. There always is. Let's be real about it. Everybody has their own dramas about one thing or another. And I think that's what makes a team. And that's where everybody comes together. Is that sort of more of an avenue you want to go down, staying in that endurance environment?
Um, it's kind of interesting because we as a team, once the endurance stuff kind of dropped GTE in favor of GT3,
Mm.
we kind of stopped participating as much. Like we still do. We'll run like the LMP2 every now and then. Like GT3 when we're forced to, but like just we as a team, we don't really mesh very well with the racing that GT3 has. Like me as a driver, I don't particularly like that class. I find you have to be a little bit too aggressive to make overtakes, and just the cars don't feel the best in my opinion.
Mm.
We did our first race in an LMP2 like couple weeks ago, and we won it. Like the first race in probably in like a year or two, and just jumped in as a team and then just won it. Like won it convincingly too. So just something about the GT3s is just kind of not really suited our team very well, and especially considering that like we had some big success in GTE, to suddenly jump into GT3 and then be running like last on merit, it's just kind of like, oh, this is kind of mediocre, and like the cars don't feel the best. They're not very lively. So it's just I think we're kind of forcing ourselves to race those cars,
Hmm.
and I feel like we as a team kind of burnt out a little bit. And then we kind of took a little bit of a break, like from like the normal 6 hours. We kind of stopped doing them altogether. Like recently, we've only really been doing the big events, like the 24-hour of Daytona, the 12-hour Sebring, yada yada yada, all the special events. I don't think we've missed a single one since we started in 2020. And then but now we're kind of starting to dip our toes into the LMP2 a little
Yeah.
bit more than we have in the past. And it's finally starting to do more endurance races now, again, finally.
That's fair enough, mate, as well. And normally one of the questions I asked the guests here as well is if you could have one car, one track in iRacing, what would you have?
Gotta be the Corvette C8R. not the GT3 variant, the GTE one. And at Road Atlanta, that car comes alive. It is so fun. Like
CR8, did you
especially,
say?
yes, C8R.
C8R, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
And then
completely
if
GTLM, GT Le Mans, GTD Pro, Daytona, used the GTD kit in 2002, 2023.
the GTE, so that'll be like pre 22, I think.
Hold on. Let me have a look. Might be easier if I do it this way. I do love a good
Because
screen share.
the Corvette C8 has two race cars, right? So you have this one, which is GTE, and then you have a later one, which is called the Corvette C8 Z06 GT3 or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. But this car has been a joy for us to drive at least. The GT3 variant, not so much.
This is in iRacing though, isn't it?
Yes,
Do I own this just for the sake of owning a car that I've probably never driven? I'm interested to see, actually. Dude, I own plenty of things that I do not ever. C8R GTE. I do own this car. But then again, I own the Z06 GT3 as well, apparently.
yeah, that's a car you could not own and be okay with.
I don't. I can't really, to be honest with you, Hayden, specify what car I'm good in, right? Because generally I do
Fair
NASCAR.
enough.
Okay, generally I do
Yeah,
NASCAR,
fair enough.
and I, do trucks if I'm going to, or Cup or something like that, right? I find Xfinity really finicky because 1 minute with Xfinity, you can hit a wall when your car stays together, and then you can hit a wall and then it just all crumbles into a million pieces. So there's no consistency. So I'll either do cups or trucks. So I clearly at some point must have thought it was a good idea to buy the Corvette Z06. I'm not quite sure why I bought the C8R, but I'm probably guessing it might be to get me in the session for J2ICS last season, to be blatantly honest, because I think you were running GTEs
We
last
we
season.
were yes, yeah, we were.
So I probably needed it to be able to actually join. And being a bit of a.
It depends because if you own any car in the session, you can jump in.
But I think at the time, Hayden, I probably didn't. Because they were
Okay.
all GTEs, weren't they? So I probably didn't. So what track would you put this wonderful Corvette C8R on?
Road Atlanta, best track ever,
I'll give you that.
undisputed.
I will give you that because Road Atlanta is a good track. It brings great racing. Shorter circuit in conjunction with Spa or Le Mans or Nords, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I'd probably give you that, to be fair, mate. I think that's not a bad selection as well. Is Road Atlanta your most favoured track then?
I would say it probably is up there. I have lots of tracks, but I would say Road Atlanta probably takes like the top step if I had to say. It's a track that just flows very well, and like in the GTE, the Corvette specifically, you can run low down first there. So you could be like, and through the S's in the GTEs, you can take curbing. So that section becomes a lot easier to do versus say something like a GT3 where you have to avoid it. So it narrows it out, and then if you get the setup tuned just right, you could you could fly through the whole track. And then on the straights you're uncatchable. No one can pass you. Like they could be on your tail for a whole hour and you feel no pressure because they can't make the pass, you know? Like they're stuck behind you no matter what because all the passing spots are at the end of a straight. Well, I'm pulling on you on the straight even though you have my toe. So it's like, yeah, it's a really it's so enjoyable to drive.
Mm.
And even in other cars, it's also very enjoyable to drive. I think J2I has raced GTP there. That was a good race. We raced LMP3 there. That was also a good race. And you have so many good races. It's just a good track, man. It's just a good track.
Okay, you do sound quite passionate about the old Corvette, to be honest with you. I think as well. What car do you drive in real life, though?
I drive A 2004 GMC Canyon.
A what? What is that?
Two, that's
2004 GMC
Canyon. It's a
Canyon.
truck. Yeah. It's a little baby truck.
Oh, is it this one? Otherwise, I'm looking at something and thinking it's a baby truck. I'm sorry, I'm just going to try and share my
Yeah,
screen
it
again.
is indeed a baby truck.
Is it this one?
Yes.
Why do you call it a baby truck?
Because it's small.
Oh, I'm guessing it doesn't look as big as it does in the picture.
No. So like this truck is probably, if I had to say, probably a foot less in width than a full-size truck of the same era. So it is a little smaller of a truck. It gets way better fuel economy than any truck
Mm.
of that, like any bigger truck than it. So it's good on my wallet. And like I for summer work I need the bed, so I couldn't buy a car. Not that I would fit in a car anyways. So I
I'm
needed the bed
presuming
to put some
you're a
stuff in
six
it.
foot plus person.
Yeah, I'm 6'5".
Whoa, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and even this truck is a little bit too small for me, but it's big enough to the point where it's not an issue.
Okay, mate. Fair enough, dude. You know what I mean? Fair enough. Where do you see? You've got this weekend's coming up as well. Have you done much practice when you go into Hockenheim? Are you sitting there thinking, I could actually take this win?
It's so hard to say for the sprint series because I don't think, with the exception of one race, I've had the pace to win at all. I think Squilliam always has just a couple tenths here and there on me, and it really does show when you kind of break down the lap times. He's
Mm.
almost consistently faster. But the issue is I've had a little bit more luck with avoiding incidents. So like it's not often that I crash out of a race, and I think that's really where you see the difference. Because Squilliam, he'll be miles ahead easily, fastest car on track, and then like something will happen. He kind of goes for a half spin or something like that, and then I get ahead, and then because I don't make mistakes, he doesn't really take it back,
Mm.
and that's kind of where you see most of it. There was one race in Chicago where I was just driving on vengeance because I started at the back because I had a little bit of a rough race in the previous race and I got a quali ban. So started in the back for race
You were
one.
naughty boy, were you?
Yes, I was being a little naughty that day. So I started at the back. I made up to like eighth or something, and then someone hit the wall, and then he spun right in front of me. Nothing I could have done. T-boned him, wrecked my race, everything. And then the next race started 12th, and I was like, okay, Squilliam's only 8 positions ahead of me. Like that's doable. I can take my time. Let's not hit anyone this time.
Mm.
And then eventually we both made it through the field in basically 3 laps, and then it was me chasing down him. I caught him on pace, which does not happen often at all. And then I was like, okay, let's kind of put the pressure on. Maybe he makes some mistakes and goes wide and hits a wall. Maybe like that would be preferable. And then that didn't really happen. He kept it safe. He kept it clean until the pit stops, and then just the way that I drive, I just save fuel just manually. So the pit stops came, I jump him, and then he tried to get me, but he wasn't able to. So that's probably the only race I've won in the sprint off pace. And so far for Hockenheim, it looks like it's unlikely I'll be faster than him. So it'll be just kind of being there, keeping the pressure on him. Maybe he makes a mistake and I
Mm.
can get ahead of him and then stay ahead for the rest of the race. That's what I'll be looking to do. But really, you won't know until race day, right?
No, exactly. You never do know till race day there, buddy. What's the plans for the rest of the days? You've got quite a lot of it remaining.
Yeah, so once the session opens, I'll be jumping in at Hockenheim to do some more laps, hopefully gain just a little bit more pace so that I'm not losing half a second a lap on him. because kind of hard to stay up close when you're losing that much time. But hopefully kind of squeeze down that gap to maybe a tenth a lap, I'm hoping. That's a little bit more doable, especially if you can stay in the toe, you can stay right on him. But it'll really have to depend. I find I don't really like Hockenheim too much. There's too many high-speed kerners for my liking, where you just kind of lift a little bit, give it a little bit of brake, and then just turn and hope it sticks. I don't really like those types of tracks because, like I said, in GTE we ran low down first, and that's not something you can do. So I'm not really well experienced in those types of cars. I have been getting a little bit better lately, but hopefully I'm able to close up that gap a little bit.
All right, man. Well, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you. Thank you so much for coming along and chatting. Time goes so quick. It's been 50 minutes already, which seems absolutely bonkers. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude, as well. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me, and everybody as well at home. If you want to get yourself involved, you can. All links down in the description below. We are booked up right the way through. I think we're going till June, I think, at this moment in time. Next week, we're going to have the joys of having a nice little chat with Curtis Matthews. And then the week after will be Eric from J2ICS is coming along for the ride. Matt Warner will be on the 27th. Then Isaac Voss doing the first one on the 3rd in June. Connor Pink will join me on the 10th of June. And Jason Winecki, Cat Daddy, he is coming along on the 17th as well. And then Christian Jasper will round off June. So we're booking ahead from July at this moment in time as well. Hayden, much appreciated, my man. Thank you so much for coming on. Enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No troubles there. Right, guys, don't forget, this will go live on Spotify a little bit later on, and then the YouTube video will go live next week. Okay, so that will be the 13th at 8 p.m. So for now, guys, and as always, take care, and we'll catch you on the other side. Good night.